Hello friends, my name's the real Emile, and welcome back to Reach the Peak, the show where you guys recommend the cars and then I take them up our hill climb course to see which one can come out on top. Today I have 5 cars for you as always, and we're going to be kicking things off with the first car of today, which is the 2004 Subaru Impreza WRX. 278 horsepower, 290 foot-pound of torque, 3,270 pounds of weight. This is an A-class car, 775 MPI when equipped with the snow tyres. That means that it is the highest MPI vehicle here today. So, the 2004 Impreza WRX. This is a car which has gotten a lot of love from my viewers. I've been requested to do it multiple times, so I figured I'd go ahead and do it. Personally, my standpoint on the 04 Impreza, I do like it. I like all models of the Subaru Impreza. The 04 isn't really one of my favourites. I much prefer the Hawkeye and the Bug-Eye, but yeah, the Blob-Eye is kind of cool as well. One of the more popular of the Imprezas, that's for certain. Anyways, as far as driving characteristics go, of course, it is a Subaru Impreza, which means 4-wheel drive, decent amount of power. 278 horsepower isn't, yeah, you know, that's a decent amount. It doesn't weigh all that much. It is a very good car to drive. It is your typical all-wheel drive affair, essentially. It's not hugely different from the other Imprezas and Evos and hell, even the Celica GT4 that we had go out last episode. You know, it is similar to all those vehicles. Honestly, from the 22B to this has got a little bit more straight line speed. 22B is the slightly nicer handling car. Overall, I'd probably go for this over the 22B just because I much sort of prefer the slight extra edge you get on acceleration and performance over the handling, because again, this is a very good handling car. The 22B isn't, you know, monstrously better handling. I mean, this isn't monstrously quicker than 22B either, but you get the point. Yep, it is a solid enough car to drive. Again, I've said it before, I'll say it again, if you want an all-wheel drive car, if you need to build one quick to go rallying in snow, or even on just the dirt trails around the mainland, then, you know, the Imprezas and the Evos are, you know, a no-brainer choice, essentially. They're all good. Pick whichever one's your favourite and get to work, is basically the way I look at it. Anyways, moving on next to a front-wheel drive car, we have the Maniac machine itself, the 2016 Vauxhall Corsa VXR. 202 horsepower, 206 foot-pound of torque, 2,851 pounds of weight. This is a B-class car, 691 MPI when equipped with the snow tyres. So, the Vauxhall Corsa, any viewer of mine will know that I don't particularly like the Vauxhall Corsa. In fact, I downright hate the Vauxhall Corsa. That being said, the modern gen Corsa E's, I do have to say, I do actually quite like them. They're interesting looking cars, certainly. I wouldn't buy one, no way, mostly because it's called a Corsa. But I wouldn't buy one over, say, a Fiesta or anything, but I don't think they're particularly bad cars. And the modern VXR, I kind of like it. It's also helped by the fact that, unlike the previous generation Corsa VXR, this car is actually quite good handling. And up this snow trail, it's a very, very good handling car indeed, in fact. You know, it did surprise me. This thing really is sort of EK9 levels of good handling. We had the Focus RS go up and I said similar things about that. Between the Focus RS and this might be better handling than the Focus RS, and that pains me to say that. But honestly, the Corsa VXR, when equipped with snow tyres, for some reason, this is just a really, really very solid handling car. You know, there is a little bit of understeer. It's a front-wheel drive car, of course you're going to get that, but it's only on power understeer, and even then, it's very minimal. You know, when you compare it to the Astra VXR, the Civic Type R, the modern one, you know, those have moderate amounts of on-power understeer. This thing has virtually none at all. It's an incredible handling car, and I don't really know why it is, but it is. Yeah, I wasn't expecting to say that. My only real complaint with this car is it could maybe use a little bit more speed, but that would mean adding power, and that would mean affecting the handling. As it stands right now, it is a very well set up front-wheel drive rally car, essentially, out of the box, you know. It is a very good car, and I hate to admit that because it is a Corsa, but yeah, it's a good car. It really is, and yeah, honestly, it's certainly interesting. Let's put it that way. Anyways, next up we go from a good handling car to a not so good handling car. This is the 1967 Chevrolet Chevelle. It has 375 horsepower, 415 foot-pound torque, 3,585 pounds of weight. It is the most powerful vehicle here today. It is the torquiest vehicle here today, and it is the heaviest. It is an A726 class car when equipped with the snow tyres. So, the Chevelle. Interestingly enough, we had the Chevrolet Impala go up not long ago, and the Impala and the Chevelle, PI-wise, are very similar. So I guess the best car to compare this Chevelle to would probably be that Impala. Comparing between the two, this is better than the Impala. You know, the Impala was quicker, there's no doubting that. It did have, I believe the Impala ran about 425 horsepower or something, so it's down 50 horsepower on the Impala. It also weighs about the same as the Impala, so there's no real advantage in speed there. In fact, this car's at sort of a disadvantage compared to the Impala when it comes to the speed. But overall handling, this is a better car to drive. It doesn't wallow around as much. Granted, do not misconstrue me. This is not a good handling car. Not even close. It slides everywhere, it rolls through the corners. You haven't really got much control over where this car goes in general. But it is better than the Impala. So, yeah, I mean, still, if you're planning on taking a muscle car, snow racing, you want to be looking towards the Dodge Dart, you want to be looking at the Charger Daytona as well. You know, those two cars are very capable, decent handling vehicles for muscle cars. The Chevelle, just too much power, too rudimentary of a suspension setup. It's just not good. It's just not good, which is a bit of a shame. I do kind of like the Chevelle. The Chevelle's sort of a car which I've always wondered why it really existed, considering Chevrolet had the Camaro at the time, which was, you know, sort of the only muscle car that they realistically needed. I'm not a huge fan of the Camaro, but, you know, but still, I mean, the Chevelle's, it's a cool enough car. We got the El Camino from it, which is something, although that's not this model of Chevelle. This model of Chevelle, though, I do kind of like, so, yeah. Anyways, next up we have another classic muscle car. This time this one is Australian-American. This is the 1967 Ford Falcon XR GT, 225 horsepower, 305 foot-pound torque, 3,150 pounds of weight. This is a B-class car, 668 MPI when equipped with the snow tyres. So of course, Falcon hugely down on power compared to the Chevelle, hugely down on torque, so no real use comparing the two cars there. This particular model of the Ford Falcon was the this is the earliest model of Falcon we currently have available to us in the game. A little bit of history on this car. Basically, this was one of the very first Australian-only Falcons. The Falcon came over to Australia in 1960, and the car couldn't really deal with the demands of the Australian motorists, you know, in the outback and so on. So they ended up improving it over time, and by about 1962 there was starting to be some major differences, and this car is sort of one of those cars from that era where it started to really gain some major differences from its American counterpart. I quite like this model of Falcon, to be fair. Anyways, as far as driving, it's pretty decent. Ultimately, the advantage of this car is just having less horsepower. You know, 225 horsepower, granted it means top speed is depleted over, say, the Chevelle, but the handling is so much better, it's so much more controllable, it doesn't roll as much on the suspension. Again, that's sort of an Australian thing that they did to the Falcon. They really, you know, bulked up the suspension when the Falcon came to Australia. So, and you do reap the rewards of that compared to the Chevelle, which is running on sort of old American suspension. This one has sort of Australian, almost off-roady suspension, and that does help the car. And again, just having less power does help it as well. The gearbox could be a bit better. First gear is very long, and the rest of the gears, yeah, you didn't really get it out of second gear during this. I got it into third occasionally, but yeah, it's an old muscle car. All of them haven't got particularly good gearboxes. But other than that, I'm really struggling, because the Falcon, solid car to drive. One of the better muscle cars I've driven up here, that's for certain. You know, if you put some power into this thing and, you know, maybe beefed up the tyres even more, this would be a pretty effective rally car, as it turns out, if you want to go for something rear-wheel drive and a little bit out there. So, yeah, solid enough car. Finally today, we come to a very, very slow car. We have the 1946 Ford Super Deluxe station wagon. 100 horsepower, 180 foot-pound of torque, 3,516 pounds of weight. There is an asterisk next to that, we'll get to that in a minute. This is a C-Class car, 505, when equipped with the snow tyres and the surfboard. I did put some cosmetic upgrades on this car. I put the surfboard on there because I like the surfboard. The surfboard does add an awful lot of weight, though. It actually adds 26 pounds, which, admittedly, for a car that weighs, I think it's like 3,490 pounds from stock, you know, that adding 26 pounds shouldn't mean too much to the car, so that's why I went for it in the end. It does take the PI down by 8, though, which I did find kind of strange. Admittedly, though, again, I don't think it makes that much of a difference to the car, and plus, you know, you can't drive this vehicle without having the surfboard. The surfboard's part of the appeal of this car. You know, I've got to admit, these sort of old woody wagons, I like these a lot, and I don't know why. Honestly, when I first heard the Super Deluxe station wagon was in Horizon 3, I was actually quite excited, because, yeah, I'm just a fan of these sort of old surfer woody wagons, you know. They're just cool to me. I like them. I've played around with this car a fair little bit. You can stick a hell of a lot of power in this, provided you don't upgrade the tyres, which does make this thing kind of terrifying if you do that. But from stock, it's not terrifying. It has 100 horsepower, for crying out loud. As a result, it's slow. That's the best way to describe this car. The suspension is very old and very, very rolly. If you do not pay attention through the corners, you can actually get this thing sort of in a lot of trouble just by virtue of the suspension, because 100 horsepower isn't usually enough to put you in an issue, but the suspension certainly will. It actually has got 180 foot-pound of torque, which is actually a fair amount. That's a lot more than I was expecting. It's alright though. I mean, you're not going to win any races in this car, there's no way. But as far as a platform to maybe build an interesting snow car out of, you know, the Deluxe might not be that bad of an option. Personally, if you're building sort of a low-class rally car, these older barn-find vehicles are certainly something you should look towards. I made a C-Class, a pretty decent C-Class rally car out of a Holden FX Ute. And I'd imagine the station wagon would be fairly decent in that sort of role. Maybe I'll have to experiment with that and build one of these up at some point to see if it really is a good snow car or not. But yeah, I mean, it's a slow car. It's not going to win. It's not going to excite you at all, but you know, it's fine, I guess. It shows potential, which is more than certain other cars, and more potential certainly than the Ford Deluxe Coupe, which we had go up a couple of weeks ago, which wasn't very good at all. Anyways, moving on to the times, and it is, unsurprisingly, the WRX, which is the fastest car today, going to 38th with a 2:14.301, 0.2 seconds off of 512 Tesla Rossa. It is quicker than a 4C, couple of Jaguars, couple of Skylines. Solid performance from the Impreza. I would expect nothing less, really, from the Subaru Impreza. Moving down the board some more, we find the Vauxhall Corsa VXR in 80th with a 2:23.343. Interestingly enough, faster than all of the classic muscle cars we've had before. It beats the Charger Daytona, which is pretty impressive. The Chevelle goes into 87th with a 2:24.445. Does beat out the Renault 5 Turbo, surprisingly enough. Does beat out the Commodore VK, but that car just did not have the handling that it could really do with. Interestingly though, it was quicker than the Impala by about a second. Moving down the board some more, we find the Falcon XR GT in 99th with a 2:27.948. It is slightly slower than a Nissan S14, but it is quicker than a Camaro IROC Z. Again, that might be just virtue down to the fact that it has a little bit less power, and the fact that the gearbox wasn't as crap as it was in the IROC Z. And finally today, unsurprisingly, it is the Super Deluxe, which is the slowest car today, going into 121st with a 307.629. Does beat the Ford Coupe by 3 seconds. Other than that, though, not really close to anything else at all, unsurprisingly. Anyways friends, that is it for this episode of Reach the Peak. I do hope you've enjoyed. As always, if you have cars that you'd like to request for this series, simply leave them down below in the comment section and I will add them to my list. With that all being said and done friends, thank you all very much for watching. My name's been The Real Emile, and until next time, a farewell.